soaring unemployment, and federal debt. The acceleration of the home foreclosure epidemic, massive unemployment, and the wholesale destruction of pension plans and state education budgets. Since the collapse happened on the watch of President George Bush at the end of 2 full terms in office, many in the Democratic Party were only too eager to blame his administration. I mean, they keep on doing this. Oh, no, it's his fault, it's everybody's fault. Yet while Bush did nothing to remedy the problem, and his response was to simply reward the culprits, the root of this disaster goes back much further to the free market propaganda of the Reagan years, and most damagingly to the bipartisan deregulation of the banking industry undertaken with the full support of liberal President Clinton. Yes, Clinton. And if this debate needs a name, it should most properly be called the Clinton bubble, as difficult as it may be to accept for those of us who voted for him. Clinton, being a smart person and an astute politician, did not use old ideological arguments to do away with the New Deal restrictions on the banking system, which had been in place ever since the Great Depression threatened the survival of capitalism. His were the words of technocrats, arguing that modern technology, globalization, and the increased sophistication of traders meant the old concerns and restrictions were outdated. Well, in a way, he's right. They were outdated. They needed to be updated. But the problem just got bigger. It didn't disappear with all of the sophisticated trading. By modernizing the economy, so the promise went, we would free powerful creative energies and create new wealth for a broad spectrum of Americans, not to mention boosting the Democratic Party enormously, both politically and financially. So see, it's been going on, and everybody keeps on enriching themselves and getting more and more corrupt. And this is how we ended up with Trump. And it worked. Traditional banks, freed by the dissolution of New Deal regulations, became much more aggressive in investing deposits, snapping up financial service companies in a binge of acquisitions. Again, Harvey Eisenberg, top merger and acquisition lawyer in this country. I mean, Harvey, I've been contacting you now for 13 years now, I think. I got Article 6, Article 7 of the Rome Statutes, which is crimes against humanity. Now we got into genocide with what's going on here. RICO and Foreign Corrupt Practices Act all over the United States. And you sitting on this just implicates you. I mean, sorry, all of you people. You know me. I've been coming to you for years and years and years. I mean, I would never, if the tables were turned, never would I hang anybody out to dry like everybody's hung me out to dry. I mean, if I heard any of this crap, I'd be on the first phone with my contacts going, you go after this one, you go after that one. That's what networking is about, and that's what the ruling elite is about. Not, oh, I don't get involved. I don't want to get involved. I don't want to get involved. Because, of course, there's going to be toes to step on. I mean, Cuatro Casas is a huge bank. And when I started my whole complaint procedure, before I, filed, I think it was before I filed with the Colegio de Abogados, I sent a letter to the managing directors. There's one in Barcelona, Madrid, and the one in Portugal, in Lisbon. They got a letter from me implicating them. They sat on it. They said there was nothing wrong. So I said, okay, fine. There's only two sides to this thing here. My side or their side. You want to go with them? You get involved in accessory after the fact. And everybody thinks that they are going to get off scot-free under statute of limitations. Because, of course, you keep on covering this up, you keep on covering it up, you keep on covering it up, time goes on, and there is statute of limitations. However, I did know that was coming. And I did see that from the very beginning. So what I have been doing is, as long as the tort, for any of you lawyers who need some lessons in law and basic principles of law, if you have, as long as the tort is ongoing, as long as the cover-ups continue, that's why I keep on writing the letters. Nobody understands this. I mean, I'm like, how can you people, you think you're so smart. You got all of these PhDs, the MBAs, and everything like that. You look down your noses at me. You think that you are so above me, so above, any kind of retribution. You believe you're God and nobody's going to touch you. You're like a freaking idiot when I say, oh no, that's why you got the letter. Oh, you didn't read it? I don't care if you didn't read it. Not my problem. I made sure you got it. Just like they do in the courts when they come to us and attack us. You have been served. You don't want to read it? You don't want to show up? Your problem. We'll come and get you anyway. I mean, when I tell the other victims every time I send a letter to any of these jackasses, I go, and he has been served. And he has been served. And when I go to the post office and they ask me, anything flammable in here? I say, only my words. And they laugh. So we'll just keep it up. I mean, I'll keep it up and keep it up and keep it up as long as I keep up, the letters and demonstrating like in the Hansel and Gretel, the little trail of breadcrumbs and stones. I've been keeping up the trail, keeping up the trail, keeping up the trail, demonstrating that, the three branches of government are not doing its job. Here's another person, yet another person. And I just keep on racking it up because now it's not only in the court system against the courts, but also the financial markets, the World Bank, the IMF, and the UN. And so when Maxine Waters came in as on the House Finance Committee, everybody on the committee got a letter saying, I want an investigation. And I'm not asking, I'm telling. I mean, this is what the monarchs are about. And this is what the monarchs in Europe should be doing. This is their constitution. Franco rose to power because the old monarch didn't do his job. And this is, all of the monarchs came down because they were too far up in their la-la land with all of their lord and ladies and not attending to their people. Everybody calls Trump a king. No, he's an emperor. Because a king or queen bee, care about their people. Okay, so let's these giant conglomerates then bet long on a broad and limitless expansion of the economy, making credit easy and driving up the stock and real estate markets to unseen heights. See how it's all related? And you just gotta break that the whole system. You can't attack one thing. Bloomberg, I was watching him with an interview with Christine Lagarde. I'll do it in another presentation. And he said something of like, oh, you can't go after all of the problems at the same time. Oh, like, that's the problem of you alpha men. And you got the alpha dominance feminists who have come on board with this same stuff. Oh, we can only handle one problem, one aspect at a time. If moms had to do that, nobody would get to work or school on time in the morning. Nobody'd eat at night. Increasingly complicated, yet wildly profitable securities, especially so-called over-the-counter derivatives, which, as their name suggests, are financial instruments derived from other assets or products, proved irresistible to global investors, even though few really understood what they were buying. Those transactions in suspect derivatives were negotiated in markets that had been freed from the obligations of government regulation and would grow in the year 2009 to more than 600 trillion. Americans' middle class, excited to be trading stocks on the internet and leveraging their homes to remodel their kitchens, approved heartily, giving Clinton seemingly irrepressible popularity even in the face of personal scandal. "It's the economy, stupid," was his favorite campaign mantra. And can't remember the Bushes. I think they were Yale rather than Harvard, but still Yale. I mean, the Ivy League schools have to stop churning out a bunch of idiots. The rest of the schools need to stop doing it as well. Let's see. Okay. "It's the economy, stupid," was his famous campaign mantra, although statistics would later show that the vast majority of new wealth was going to the top 10% of the population, even if real wages were basically stagnant. People felt richer because they had what seemed to be limitless credit to enjoy the best of what the consumer culture had to offer. You remember It's a Wonderful World? Not so wonderful. We gotta stop living in La La Land. Meanwhile, the Democrats had reversed a decades-long decline in fundraising might, surpassing the Republicans, as Wall Street, who tended to be solely liberal, suddenly poured money into the party's coffers. This trend continues today. President Obama's second biggest contributor was the investment bank Goldman Sachs, which played a key role in the economic collapse, even as, with the government's help, it survived and went on to new heights of profit. And the problems have just gotten worse and worse and worse. I mean, instead of $1 trillion, the Fed had put $3 trillion. The IMF is now, Christine Lagarde is over at the European Central Bank. Let's see what they did. I'm sure they're playing the same game. They're all playing the same game, and it is going to collapse. And Christine Lagarde, sorry, you're going to have to be held accountable along with everybody else. You want to opt into the game. You want these powerful positions. You're having it all. You're the great, masters of the universe and saviors of this world, and you're doing such a wonderful job. Where's your evidence? Where's your evidence? Because I don't see it anywhere. Anywhere that I've gone in this world. I mean, that's another thing. Everybody in Washington, they think that they're these big jet setters all over the world. They go from one meeting here, jet set, to a hotel, to another conference, another meeting, with the same group of people. They just all shh. And it's very, believe me, when you get to the top, it's very, very, very small, the group of people who are involved. And legal community, if I can't find somebody to start submitting cases to the courts, everything's going to collapse, and the bloodshed's going to start, and it's going to be on your hands. I don't know what, I've done all of the research. I've done all of the argumentation. I keep on fighting. To keep a roof over my head. When the COVID started and we got locked down, this place hasn't been cleaned in 10 years. It was disgusting. I had to spend a week and them screaming at me. One guy, he's an ex-cokehead and heroin addict. I mean, all he does is scream at me that I'm upsetting his zen by cleaning. And the other, who's the landlord, who has a responsibility that this place is clean and kept in a situation where we're not in danger of bringing it in and catching it. I mean, everybody has to, you can't be sure, but everybody has to take a minimum of, precautions. I'm the only one in this house who's taking any precautions. I wipe down, I have to go and clean, the kitchen, the bathroom every day, wipe down all of the doorknobs that are, because if I touch anybody else's stuff, oh my God, I get screamed at. And I have no recourse under the law. I mean, he's told me he's throwing me out. I said, go ahead, what do you want me to do? I'm not going to succumb to your bullying and your threats. I'm tired of it. I've been doing it for 12 years in my frickin' country that's supposed to be a democracy. I mean, when I got in with this within Spain, I told the lawyers, I said, well, I thought Spain was a democracy, but obviously not. Nothing changes. You get the constitutions in there, you get all of these laws and everything like that. Doesn't matter. Because I've seen with my own eyes, and people know me out there. No, I don't lie, I don't exaggerate, I don't invent things, I'm not the pathological liar. This is another huge problem we have in the courts, is women, the women, the alpha dominance feminists particularly, and the cackling hens, because the alpha dominance feminists are just as much the women who want to get into the workplace and having it all as the social climbing little bitches who are marrying men for their money and want to make sure that the resources stay with, their white husbands, if that's who they're married, or they're brown, or they're black. You see how it works? And that's the only thing that is motivating anybody. And as long as that keeps up, the world will destroy itself. There's no ifs and buts about it. I mean, I ask my children every day, forgive me for bringing you into this cesspool of a world that nobody cares about anybody or anything except their own little pockets and hedonistic pursuits. I don't know, maybe some of you people out there are luckier than me, but that's all I've ever seen in my life. The good times, however, were based on a foundation of sand. At the boom's heart was a casino in which everyone was seemingly betting one way, even as they were buying insurance on their bets, which allowed them to believe they were playing it safe. This virtual market was a huge expansion in derivatives future trading, transforming a market based on predicting the prices of well-understood commodities into the realm of financial hocus pocus. Unlike the traditional staple products, pork bellies, wheat, and other such commodities of the major future exchange, these new products were more varied, less transparent, and almost completely unregulated. The new derivatives were sold over the counter instead of on a public exchange, meaning that a buyer and a seller simply made deals directly. But what was really difficult about these OTC, over-the-counter, derivatives that caused the meltdown was what the investors were buying: future payment and or interest on debt. I mean, it goes on and on and on here. I'll leave this part for another time, because it is getting long. But as you see, as this gets into the 90s and you know, again and again and again, what's going on. Again and again and again. It just, I'll leave this for another presentation, because it gets into a lot of, it repeats there a lot, but it does get into a lot of the, excuse me, the details of what's going on. But as I saw, you know, as I did Death of the Liberal Class in the last presentation, the Democrats and the liberals are just as bad as the conservatives. So to finish up, there's Griftopia. So we've seen, you know, Arianna Huffington, third world, yes, okay, so what you do about it? Make some money off of it. Then in the banking system, you know, how this is playing into all of those different issues. Now, this gets in kind of to the rise of Sarah Palin and how and why she happened, if you will. So this is Matt Taibbi. He's of the Rolling Stones magazine. Like most Americans, I don't know a damn thing about high finance. See, this is a problem. Everybody's investing, but they don't understand anything about the financial systems or anything like that. You know, don't get into something that you don't understand. One of, back in the 80s, I would say the most useful $1,000 I ever lost was in the options. I mean, I was saving to go to pack my bags and leave for Europe, and I mean, I had some savings, and one of the guys that I worked for, he said, well, you know, because it was a crapshoot, but you could make some money. Once was enough. I was like, okay, I learned my lesson. This is a casino. You don't get into this game with money that you can't afford to lose. It's like going to the casino. I might go to the casino, you know, for fun. I went one time with my sister, because it was in Haiti, and she had some coins from the local grocery store or something, so we went and we played the coins. Okay, you know, that's amusing. Even playing craps or something like that, or penny poker. It's amusing. I can afford to, you know, lose some pennies or lose a... But people who go in there and lose their shirt need to have their head examined. I mean, we need our banking systems. We need our financial markets. We need our capital markets. We need our secondary markets. We need the majority of products that have been produced. Some of them, not so much. The whole Bitcoin thing, I don't even understand how that is legal, because I believe it's in the U.S. Constitution that the American government is the only one who can issue legal tender in the United States. So I'm kind of not even understanding how this whole Bitcoin stuff, oh, believe me, that's going to collapse. I know, even Christine Lagarde, when I see Christine Lagarde promoting that, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. The last thing we need is another currency trading with, we don't know what's underneath. At least, you know, when we got off the gold standard, I understand the argumentation for that, because the value of your country is not just your gold reserves. you do have your products and services, so there is a legitimate argument for having gotten off the gold standard, although I think it has produced more problems than anything else. But, you know, I keep on trying when I read about the Bitcoins, and I'm like, where's the tangible asset behind this? Because, I mean, I could say, here's $1. Because I say it's $1 or $100. Where's an asset? Who's going to accept this, you know, in exchange for $100 of merchandise or something like that? You have to have something tangible behind your currency for it to be, you know, viable and tradable. Now, I know they've worked up all of these different things, but everything that I've read on that, I'm like, this is a Ponzi scheme that's going to collapse at the end. And it's a huge Ponzi scheme. The rumbling of financial doom have been sounding for months now. The first half of 2008 had already seen the death of Bear Stearns, one of America's top 5 investment banks, and a second Lehman Brothers, had lost 73% of its value in the first 6 months of the year, and was less than 2 weeks away from a bankruptcy that would trigger the worldwide crisis. Within the same 2-week time frame, a third top 5 investment bank, Merrill Lynch, would sink to the bottom alongside Lehman Brothers, thanks to a hole blown in its side by years of reckless gambling debts. Merrill would be swallowed up in a shady state-aided backroom shotgun wedding to Bank of America that would never become anything like a major issue in this presidential race. The root cause of all of these disasters was the unraveling of a massive Ponzi scheme centered around the American real estate market, a huge bubble of investment fraud that floated the American economy for the better part of a decade. Say Ponzi schemes. They love to do Ponzi schemes. This is a pretty big story, but at the moment I know nothing about it. Taking it as a powerful indictment of American journalism, that I am far from alone in this among the campaign press corps charged with covering the 2008 elections. None of us understand this stuff. I mean, educated people should, all of them, all of the 10%ers should be understanding. I mean, this is one of the things. Maybe I'm not an expert nowadays. I guess after everything I've looked at, I'm as much as an expert as any of these PhDs or MBAs. But I'm not focused. I'm a Renaissance woman, if you will. You know, not only educated in the arts and music and entertaining and cooking and hostessing and schmoozing and networking and all of the things that the upper elite have to do. But I also know more about law than any of the lawyers out there, more about human rights than any of the human rights people, more about politics than any of the politicians, more about economics than any of the economists. You know, why? Because I have spent my entire life questioning. I mean, my mother, one of the things that she always, first she would say, when we would say, I didn't hear you, she'd say, no, you weren't listening. And she was right. This is a huge problem. And the other was intellectual curiosity. It's not just about passing the grade, getting the A, then getting out of school, and thinking, now I got my free ride. I mean, my ex is like that. One time we were talking about schools, and you know, when we were in school. And I said, oh, my teachers loved me because they would give their spiel and they would give their lecture, and then I would shoot my hand up and I would say, I disagree. go off into my argumentation. And he said, I mean, normally it was like the English lit classes or, you know, something where they were asking for debate and conversation. And I love literature, English and American. One of my English teachers, he tried to turn me on to Russian literature with Crime and Punishment. And I have to say, I appreciate the Russians. If everybody thinks that I'm long-winded in my writing and my discussions, you should sit down with the Russians. They really will chew your ear off. But they're very thorough. They're very, very knowledgeable. I mean, the Russians that I have known have just impressed me with, you know, their knowledge of just different things. So they are very knowledgeable. But once again, this gets into rags to riches. I don't care if it's a rag to riches story of your family or rags to riches story of your country. The people who are grappling up the ladder of success, trying to get out of poverty, will scratch and claw. People who are born into it are not as impressed by it. And okay, granted, again, I was not born into great wealth, but I was always, you know, when we go to New York City, for me, going to New York City was the Plaza Hotel. We shouldn't have been staying there, we didn't have the money, but that's where my mother always wanted to stay. That's where we would stay. You know, growing up for me, 5-star hotel, I was like, well, I don't know, the Holiday Inn, the rooms are just as nice as this one, and you're paying $500-600 for that room, and this room costs $200. The only difference you got is the lobby downstairs. Well, I don't go to a hotel for anything else to sleep, so I don't know why I'm going to pay the $500. I mean, see, when you grow up, and I guess also I'm not, just my personality, I'm not impressed with money or luxury, so maybe that plays into it. But when you know, have that from the very beginning, it doesn't impress you, and you're not so likely to sell yourself to have it. I mean, Ghislaine Maxwell, I was listening to something about her, a tarot reader. The tarot readers are actually much more interesting than what's going on up on Capitol Hill. I've just gotten to the point where I think a lot of Americans are, I'm too tired of listening to the squabbling. I know how it's going to end. I told everybody what would happen, and it's just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. Trump apparently probably is going to step down, they're saying now, at least the tarot readers, which I think he, you know, with the COVID and everything's going to collapse when the COVID is over and we have millions and millions of dead, and the people